The midnight pounding shattered Nathan Cole's quiet house like gunfire. He stumbled downstairs, 7-year-old Sophie still sleeping upstairs, and yanked open the door to find his mysterious CEO neighbor drenched in rain and terror, clutching evidence that a corporate conspiracy was destroying her life. She needed him to pretend to be her boyfriend at tomorrow's gala. He had 12 hours to decide if he'd risk everything for a woman he barely knew. What he didn't realize was that saying yes would transform his entire world. If you're watching from your city right now, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're from so I can see how far this story travels. Let's begin. Nathan Cole had learned to sleep lightly, not because he wanted to, not because insomnia ran in his family, or because Chicago's South Loop neighborhood kept him awake with street noise. He slept lightly because Sophie sometimes had nightmares, and when his 7-year-old daughter woke up crying in the middle of the night, Nathan needed to be there before the fear took hold. So when the pounding started at 12:47 a.m., his eyes snapped open immediately. 3 heavy knocks, a pause, then 3 more, harder this time, urgent enough to rattle the frame. Nathan threw off the blanket and grabbed the nearest shirt from the chair beside his bed. His mind ran through possibilities as he hurried down the narrow staircase of their 2-story brick townhouse. Medical emergency. Wrong address. Drunk college kid from DePaul wandering home. Not once did he imagine it would be Elena Vaughn. He flipped on the porch light and yanked open the door, ready to tell whoever it was to keep it down before they woke Sophie. The words died in his throat. Elena stood on his doorstep in a soaked navy blazer and dress pants, rain streaming down her face, her normally perfect dark hair plastered against her skull. She looked like she'd just walked out of Lake Michigan. Her eyes, sharp, gray, the kind that could cut through a boardroom full of executives, were wide with something Nathan had never seen in them before. Fear. "I need your help," she said. Nathan stared. They'd been neighbors for 11 months. In all that time, they'd exchanged maybe 30 words total. Polite nods when they happened to leave their houses at the same time. A brief good morning once when they both grabbed their mail. That was it. And now she was standing on his porch at nearly 1 in the morning, drenched and shaking. "Are you—" Nathan started, but Elena pushed past him into the narrow entryway, dripping rain onto the hardwood floor. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice tight and controlled despite the panic in her eyes. "I know this is insane. I know we don't know each other, but I didn't know where else to go." Nathan closed the door, his engineer brain trying to catch up with whatever crisis had just walked into his house. "Are you hurt? Do you need me to call?" "No." Elena turned to face him, and for the first time, Nathan noticed she was clutching a manila envelope against her chest like it contained state secrets. "I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend." Nathan blinked. "What?" "Tomorrow night, there's a gala, corporate event. I need someone to come with me, and I need it to look real." She said it fast, like she'd rehearsed the words a dozen times on the walk over. "I know how this sounds. I know you have every reason to tell me to get out. But I'm being destroyed, and this is the only way I can stop it." Nathan took a step back, his hand still on his doorknob. "I think you should— They're spreading rumors that I'm unstable." Elena's voice cracked just slightly, and she steadied herself against the wall. "That I'm emotionally unfit to run the company. My rival, another executive, he's been planting stories, manipulating perceptions, making me look erratic and dangerous. He's got people watching me, taking photos, twisting everything I do into evidence that I'm losing my mind." She pulled a set of photographs from the envelope and shoved them toward Nathan. Her hands were shaking. Nathan took them slowly. Even in the dim light of his entryway, he could see what they were: surveillance photos. Elena leaving her house early in the morning, coffee in hand. Elena sitting alone in her car outside a grocery store. Elena standing on her balcony late at night, staring out at the city. Innocent moments, made to look sinister through the lens of someone watching. "There are more," Elena said quietly. "Emails taken out of context. Meetings I supposedly missed because I was too emotional to attend. Anonymous reports claiming I've been erratic, aggressive, paranoid." She met Nathan's eyes. "None of it's true, but perception is everything in my world, and right now, perception is that I'm falling apart." Nathan set the photos on the narrow console table beside the door. His first instinct was to say no. To tell her he didn't do corporate games, didn't get involved in other people's wars, didn't risk his daughter's safety for a stranger's problems. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the fear in her eyes. Maybe it was the way she stood there soaking wet, holding that envelope like it was the only proof she had left that she wasn't actually losing her mind. Maybe it was just that Nathan knew what it felt like to be alone. "Why me?" he asked. Elena hesitated. "Because you don't care about any of this. You're not part of my world. You don't have an agenda." She glanced around his house, at the scattered Lego bricks on the living room floor, the crayon drawings taped to the walls, the worn couch with the throw blanket Sophie liked to curl up under. "You have a real life. And if I show up with someone like you, someone stable, grounded, normal, it undermines every lie they've been spreading about me." Holt. "I'm not normal," Nathan said flatly. "I'm a single dad with a 7-year-old upstairs who needs me more than you do." "I know." Elena's voice softened. "I've seen you with her. I've watched you walk her to the bus stop every morning, carry her soccer gear, help her with homework on your porch when the weather's nice." She paused. "You're a good father. That's exactly why this works." Nathan crossed his arms. "You've been watching me?" "No, I just—" Elena stopped, looking frustrated with herself. "I notice things. It's part of the job. I notice patterns, people, routines. And I notice that you're the kind of person who shows up, who doesn't quit, who takes care of the people he loves." She took a shaky breath. "I need someone like that standing next to me tomorrow night. Just for a few hours, just long enough to show the board, the investors, the executives who want me gone, that I'm not the unstable, isolated train wreck they're painting me as." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. She was still dripping rainwater onto his floor. Her blazer was expensive, probably cost more than Nathan's entire month's rent. But right now she looked like someone who'd been running for a very long time and had finally hit a wall. "And if I say no?" Nathan asked. Elena's jaw tightened. "Then I lose. Victor wins. And everything I've spent my entire life building gets handed over to someone who's willing to lie, cheat, and destroy people to get what he wants." Nathan rubbed his face, exhaustion and disbelief mixing into something that felt dangerously close to sympathy. "This is insane. I know. Oh, you're asking me to walk into a room full of corporate sharks and pretend to be something I'm not." "Yes. What? And you think that's going to solve your problems?" "No." Elena's voice was quiet but steady. "I think it's going to buy me time to prove that Victor's the one manipulating everyone, time to show the board who I really am, time to survive long enough to fight back." Nathan looked at the photographs again, then at Elena, then at the staircase where Sophie was still sleeping, blissfully unaware that her father was standing in the entryway debating whether to step into someone else's nightmare. "One night," he said finally. Elena's eyes widened. "What?" "One night. I'll go to your gala. I'll stand next to you, play the part, do whatever you need me to do. But after that, we're done. You go back to your corporate war, and I go back to my life." Relief flooded Elena's face so suddenly it almost looked painful. "Yes, one night. That's all I need. And you leave Sophie out of this," Nathan added, his voice harder now. "Whatever happens, my daughter doesn't get dragged into your mess. No photos, no stories, no using her to make you look good. She's off limits." "Of course," Elena said quickly. "I would never—" "Good." Nathan stepped back and opened the door. "Then we have a deal. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 6. Ikas seats." Elena stared at him like she couldn't quite believe he'd agreed. Then she nodded, clutching the envelope tighter. "Thank you." She turned to leave, but Nathan stopped her. "Elena." She looked back. "If you're lying to me, if this is some kind of setup or game, I will walk out of that gala the second I figure it out, and you'll never see me again." Elena met his eyes, and for the first time since she'd shown up on his doorstep, Nathan saw something other than fear in her expression. Gratitude. "I'm not lying," she said quietly. "I promise." And then she was gone, disappearing into the rain-soaked night like she'd never been there at all. Nathan closed the door and locked it, his heart still pounding. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the wet footprints she'd left on his floor, trying to process what had just happened. Then he heard Sophie's voice from the top of the stairs. Daddy? Nathan turned. His daughter stood on the landing in her purple pajamas, her hair a mess of tangles, her favorite stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. Hey, sweetheart. Nathan forced his voice into something calm and steady. What are you doing up? I heard knocking, Sophie said, rubbing her eyes. Who was here? Nathan climbed the stairs and scooped her up, even though she was getting too big for it. She wrapped her arms around his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. Just a neighbor, Nathan said softly. She needed help with something. The pretty lady who lives next door? Nathan smiled despite himself. Yeah, her. Is she okay? Nathan carried Sophie back to her room and tucked her into bed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. She will be. Sophie yawned. Are you going to help her? Nathan smoothed the hair back from his daughter's forehead, the way he'd done 1,000 times since she was born. Yeah, kiddo, I think I am. Oh. Good. Sophie's eyes were already closing. You're good at helping people. Nathan kissed her forehead and turned off the light, leaving the door cracked open just enough to let the hallway light spill in. Then he walked back downstairs, poured himself a glass of water, and sat at the kitchen table in the dark. He thought about his wife. Claire had been dead for 4 years. Cancer. Fast and brutal and unfair in the way that life sometimes was. She'd fought hard, harder than anyone Nathan had ever known. But in the end, the fight hadn't mattered. Sophie had been 3 years old when Claire died. Nathan had spent the years since then building a life that was small, controlled, and safe. He worked as a mechanical engineer for a mid-sized firm downtown, designing HVAC systems for office buildings. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough and let him leave at 5 every day to pick Sophie up from after-school care. Their life was routine, predictable, stable, and Nathan had worked hard to keep it that way, because stability was the only thing that had kept them both from falling apart. Now he'd just agreed to walk into Elena Vaughn's corporate battlefield and pretend to be someone he wasn't. For a woman he barely knew, for reasons he didn't fully understand. Nathan drained his glass and set it in the sink. Then he went back upstairs, checked on Sophie one more time, and lay down in his own bed, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion finally dragged him under. The next morning came too fast. Nathan dropped Sophie off at school, fielded her usual barrage of questions about what they were having for dinner and whether they could stop at the library on the way home, and then drove to work in a fog of sleep deprivation and second-guessing. By lunchtime, he'd convinced himself the whole thing had been a fever dream. But at 5:47 p.m., as he was pulling into his driveway with Sophie chattering in the back seat about her friend Mia's upcoming birthday party, Nathan saw Elena standing on her front porch. She looked different in daylight. Put together. Professional. The kind of woman who ran boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions before breakfast. Sophie noticed her too. Is that the neighbor you helped last night? Sophie asked, craning her neck to see. Yeah, Nathan said, killing the engine. She's really pretty. Nathan didn't disagree. Come on, let's get inside. They climbed out of the car, and Elena walked over, her heels clicking on the sidewalk. She changed into a crisp white blouse and black slacks, and her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked nothing like the terrified woman who'd shown up soaking wet on Nathan's doorstep 12 hours earlier. Hi, Elena said, her voice carefully neutral. Hi, Nathan replied. They stood there awkwardly for a moment, then Sophie tugged on Nathan's sleeve. Daddy, aren't you going to introduce me? Nathan glanced down at his daughter, then back at Elena. Sophie, this is Elena. Elena, this is my daughter Sophie. Sophie stuck out her hand with the kind of exaggerated formality only 7-year-olds could pull off. Nice to meet you. Elena crouched down and shook Sophie's hand seriously. Nice to meet you too, Sophie. Are you the one who needed help? Sophie asked bluntly. Elena hesitated, glancing at Nathan. Yes, your dad's been very kind. He's good at that, Sophie said matter-of-factly. He helps me with my homework even when I get really frustrated and want to quit. Elena smiled, a real smile, not the polite corporate version. That sounds like him. Nathan cleared his throat. Sophie, why don't you head inside and get started on your reading? I'll be there in a minute. Sophie nodded and ran toward the house, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Once she was inside, Elena straightened and met Nathan's eyes. I didn't mean to. It's fine, Nathan said. She's curious. That's normal. Elena nodded, but she looked uncomfortable. I wanted to go over a few things before tonight. Make sure we're on the same page. Nathan crossed his arms. I thought the plan was just to show up and look convincing. It is, but there are details. Elena glanced toward her house. Can you come over, just for a few minutes? Nathan hesitated. He didn't like the idea of leaving Sophie alone, even for a few minutes. But she was inside, safe, and he could see his front door from Elena's porch. Fine, he said, but I need to be quick. Oh. Elena led him across the narrow strip of grass that separated their houses and up the steps to her front door. The inside of her place was exactly what Nathan expected. Sleek, modern, expensive. Everything was white or gray or black, with clean lines and minimal decoration. It looked like a showroom. Do you want something to drink? Elena asked, already moving toward the kitchen. No, just tell me what I need to know. Elena stopped and turned to face him. For a moment, she looked like she was trying to figure out where to start. The gala starts at 7, she said finally. It's at the Peninsula Hotel downtown. Black tie. I'll have a car pick us up at 6:30. Nathan frowned. I don't own a tuxedo. Elena blinked. Oh, right. She thought for a moment. What size are you? Why? I'll have one sent over. It'll be there by 5. Nathan shook his head. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Elena's voice was firm. This has to look real, Nathan. That means you can't show up in a suit you borrowed from a friend or rented from a discount shop. You need to look like someone who belongs there. Nathan wanted to argue, but he could see the logic. Fine. Elena relaxed slightly. Okay, good. When we get there, we'll walk in together. Stay close. Hold my hand if it feels natural, but don't overdo it. These people can smell fake from a mile away. Comforting, Nathan muttered. There will be a lot of executives, board members, investors. Most of them will want to talk to me. Some of them will ask about you. Keep your answers simple, honest. You're an engineer. We met through mutual friends. We've been seeing each other for a few months. And if they ask why no one's ever seen me before, because we've been keeping it private. Elena said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I don't broadcast my personal life, and you're not part of this world. It makes sense. Nathan leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to ignore the knot tightening in his stomach. Who's Victor? Who? Elena's expression darkened. Victor Langford, Chief Operating Officer. He's been with the company for 8 years, and he's spent the last 2 trying to convince the board that I'm too unstable to be CEO. Why does he want you gone? Because I'm better than him. Elena said it without arrogance, just stated it as fact. I've brought in more revenue, closed bigger deals, turned around failing divisions. But Victor's a man, and he's older, and he's very good at making people believe that leadership looks like him, not me. Nathan studied her. And the photos? The rumors? All Victor. He's got people following me, documenting every move I make, twisting it into something sinister. Last month I missed a board meeting because I had food poisoning. Victor told everyone I was having a breakdown. She exhaled sharply. 2 weeks ago, I raised my voice during a negotiation with a vendor who was trying to screw us over. Victor spun it as proof that I'm emotionally volatile. That's insane, see? That's corporate politics. Elena's voice was bitter. And it works. Because once people start believing you're unstable, everything you do gets filtered through that lens. You're not decisive. You're erratic. You're not confident. You're arrogant. You're not passionate. You're unhinged. Nathan was quiet for a moment. He thought about the photos Elena had shown him last night. The surveillance, the manipulation, the calculated destruction of someone's reputation. Why don't you just quit? He asked. Elena looked at him like he'd suggested she set herself on fire. Because I've spent my entire life building this. I started as an intern when I was 22. I worked 70-hour weeks, gave up relationships, gave up everything to get here. And I'm not going to let someone like Victor take it away because he's better at playing dirty. Nathan could hear the steel in her voice, the refusal to back down. He respected it, but he also wondered what it had cost her. Okay, Nathan said. So I show up, play the part, and help you prove that you're not falling apart. What happens after that? After that, I fight back. Elena's eyes hardened. I've been gathering evidence, emails, recordings, witness statements. Once I show the board what Victor's been doing, he's done. And if it doesn't work? Elena didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, then I lose everything. Nathan pushed off the counter. I need to get back to Sophie. Elena nodded. The tuxedo will be there by 5. I'll see you at 6:30. Nathan walked to the door, then paused. Elena. She looked at him. If this goes wrong tonight, if your plan falls apart, I'm not going down with you. I've got a daughter to think about. Elena's expression softened just slightly. I know, and I won't let that happen. Nathan didn't know if he believed her, but he nodded anyway and walked back across the grass to his own house, where Sophie was waiting with a stack of library books and 1,000 questions about what he was doing at the neighbor's house. Nathan told her the truth, or at least part of it. Elena needed help with something important, and Nathan had agreed to go to an event with her tonight. Sophie accepted this with the kind of easy trust only kids had. Then she asked if they could have mac and cheese for dinner, and Nathan said yes, and they spent the rest of the afternoon doing homework and reading and pretending that everything was normal. At 4:58 p.m., a courier arrived with a garment bag and a shoebox. Nathan opened them in his bedroom while Sophie watched TV downstairs. The tuxedo fit perfectly, so did the shoes. Nathan stared at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked like someone who belonged at a corporate gala. Someone polished and put together and confident. He looked nothing like the guy who spent his evenings helping his daughter sound out vocabulary words and fixing broken toys. Nathan changed back into jeans and a t-shirt and went downstairs to make dinner. At 6:15, Sophie's babysitter arrived, a college student named Jenna, who lived 2 blocks over and had been watching Sophie once or twice a month for the past year. Sophie hugged Nathan tightly before he left. You look fancy, Daddy. Nathan smiled. Thanks, kiddo. Are you going on a date? Nathan hesitated. Sort of. Sophie grinned. With the pretty neighbor? Yeah. Good, you should go on more dates. Nathan kissed the top of her head. I'll be home late. Be good for Jenna, okay? I will. Nathan grabbed his coat and stepped outside just as a black town car pulled up in front of Elena's house. Elena emerged a moment later, and Nathan forgot how to breathe. She was wearing a floor-length black gown that somehow managed to be elegant and devastating at the same time. Her hair was down, falling in dark waves over her shoulders, and she'd done something to her makeup that made her gray eyes look even sharper. She looked like someone who could walk into a room and own it without saying a word. Nathan walked over, and Elena smiled, nervous but trying to hide it. You clean up well, she said. So do you. They stood there for a moment, the weight of what they were about to do settling over them like a heavy coat. Then Elena held out her hand. Ready? She asked. Nathan took her hand. Her fingers were cold. Let's get this over with, he said. And together, they climbed into the car and drove toward the Peninsula Hotel, toward a world Nathan didn't belong in, toward a night that would change everything. The Peninsula Hotel rose above Michigan Avenue like a monument to money and power, its limestone facade glowing under the city lights. Nathan had driven past it 100 times, but never once imagined he'd walk through its doors wearing a borrowed tuxedo and pretending to be someone's boyfriend. The town car pulled up to the entrance, and a valet in white gloves opened Elena's door before Nathan could even reach for the handle. She stepped out with the kind of effortless grace that came from years of practice, and Nathan followed, feeling like an imposter in expensive clothes. Elena reached back and took his hand. Her grip was firm, almost desperate, but her face showed nothing except calm confidence. Just follow my lead, she murmured as they walked toward the entrance. And try to look like you're enjoying yourself. I'm terrible at lying, Nathan said. Then don't lie. Just don't look terrified. Nathan wasn't sure he could manage that either. They stepped through the revolving doors into a lobby that looked like something out of a movie. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, flower arrangements the size of small cars. Everything gleamed. Everything whispered wealth in a language Nathan had never learned to speak. A woman in a sleek navy dress approached them immediately, clipboard in hand, smile professionally bright. "Miss Vaughn, wonderful to see you," she said, her eyes flicking briefly to Nathan with undisguised curiosity. "Your table is ready in the grand ballroom. Right this way." Elena nodded, her hand still holding Nathan's, and they followed the woman through a hallway lined with gilt-framed mirrors and more flowers. Nathan caught glimpses of himself in the reflections, tall, broad-shouldered, looking almost convincing in the tuxedo. Almost. The grand ballroom was exactly what its name promised. Vaulted ceilings, enormous windows overlooking the city, tables draped in white linen and set with enough silverware to confuse an etiquette expert. At least 200 people filled the space, all of them dressed like they'd just stepped off a runway. Nathan felt every eye in the room turn toward them. Elena squeezed his hand once, a silent reminder to stay calm, and then she was moving through the crowd with the confidence of someone who owned the place. People stepped aside to let them pass. Some smiled, some whispered. Some stared like they were trying to solve a puzzle they hadn't known existed until 30 seconds ago. A tall man in his early 60s approached them, silver hair perfectly styled, a champagne flute already in his hand. "Elena," he said warmly, kissing her on both cheeks. "You look stunning as always." "Thank you, Richard." Elena smiled, and it looked genuine. "I'd like you to meet Nathan Cole." "Nathan." "This is Richard Pemberton, chairman of our board." Nathan shook Richard's hand, trying not to grip too hard or too soft, trying to look like someone who shook hands with board chairmen all the time. "Nathan," Richard said, studying him with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, "Elena's kept you quite the secret." "We've been trying to keep things private," Elena said smoothly. "Nathan's not part of this world, and I didn't want to subject him to the spotlight before he was ready." Richard's smile widened. "And are you ready now, Nathan?" Nathan met his eyes. "I'm here. Aren't I?" Richard laughed, genuinely amused. "Indeed you are. What do you do, if you don't mind my asking?" "Mechanical engineer," Nathan said. "HVAC systems, mostly. Office buildings." "Practical work," Richard said approvingly. "We need more of that in the world. Too many people chasing abstractions these days." A woman in a red dress appeared at Richard's elbow, whispering something in his ear. He nodded and turned back to Elena. "Duty calls, I'm afraid. But let's catch up later. I want to hear how you two met." He winked at Nathan. "I'm sure it's a good story." He disappeared into the crowd, and Elena exhaled slowly. "That went well," she murmured. "He seemed nice," Nathan said. "He is, but he's also the one who'll decide whether I get the CEO position or whether Victor does. So nice doesn't mean safe." Before Nathan could respond, before Nathan, another voice cut through the ambient conversation. "Elena, what a surprise." Nathan turned and saw a man in his late 40s approaching them, everything about him polished to an aggressive shine. Expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena's hand tightened on Nathan's. "Victor," she said evenly. "Good to see you." So this was Victor Langford. Nathan studied him, the sharp jawline, the perfectly groomed hair, the way he moved through the crowd like a shark cutting through water. He looked like every corporate executive Nathan had ever seen in a movie, the kind who gave inspiring speeches about teamwork while quietly sabotaging everyone around him. Victor's gaze slid to Nathan, assessing him in the space of a heartbeat. "And who's this?" Victor asked, his tone friendly but his eyes cold. "Nathan Cole," Elena said. "My boyfriend." The word hung in the air between them like a challenge. Victor's smile widened. "Boyfriend, how wonderful. I didn't realize you were seeing anyone, Elena. You've been so private lately." "I value my personal life," Elena said, "unlike some people." Victor laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Fair enough. Nathan, is it? What do you do?" "I'm an engineer," Nathan said. "How fascinating." Victor's tone suggested it was anything but. "And how did you two meet?" Nathan felt Elena's hand squeeze his again, a silent signal to stick to the script. Mutual friends, Nathan said. A few months ago. And you've been together since then? Victor asked, his eyes never leaving Nathan's face. We have, Elena said firmly. Victor nodded slowly like he was filing away information for later use. Well, congratulations. It's good to see you looking so stable, Elena. The board will be pleased. The word stable landed like a slap. Elena's jaw tightened, but her expression didn't change. I'm always stable, Victor, she said quietly. Some people just prefer to see what they want to see. Victor's smile turned sharp. Of course. Well, enjoy the evening. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to catch up later. He walked away, and Nathan felt Elena's entire body relax beside him. That's him, she said, her voice barely audible. I figured. Did you see the way he looked at you? He's already planning his next move. Nathan glanced around the ballroom, suddenly aware of how many people were watching them. Elena, if this is going to work, you need to stop looking like you're about to bolt. She looked at him sharply. I'm fine. You're gripping my hand so hard I'm losing circulation. Elena loosened her hold immediately, looking embarrassed. Sorry. Nathan turned to face her fully, blocking the view of the crowd. Look, I agreed to help you, but if we're going to convince anyone that this is real, you need to relax. These people can tell you're scared. I'm not scared, Elena said automatically. You're terrified. Nathan kept his voice low but firm. And I get it, but right now you need to take a breath and remember that you belong here more than anyone in this room. You've earned this, so act like it. Elena stared at him, something shifting behind her eyes. Then she took a slow breath and nodded. Okay, she said. Good. Now smile at me like you actually like me. Elena's lips twitched despite herself. I barely know you. Then fake it. You're good at that, right? This time Elena actually smiled, small but real. You're kind of an asshole, you know that? Sophie tells me the same thing when I make her eat vegetables. Elena laughed, a quick surprise sound, and Nathan felt some of the tension ease between them. A server appeared with a tray of champagne, and Elena took 2 glasses, handing one to Nathan. To faking it, she said softly. Nathan clinked his glass against hers. To surviving the night. They drank, and Nathan tried not to think about the fact that he was standing in the middle of a corporate battlefield, pretending to be someone he wasn't while his daughter was at home watching movies with a babysitter. The next 2 hours were a blur of introductions, small talk, and forced smiles. Nathan met so many executives, board members, and investors that their names started blending together into a meaningless stream of handshakes and polite questions. Elena navigated it all with practiced ease, introducing Nathan as her boyfriend with just enough warmth to make it believable, just enough distance to keep it professional. And Nathan played his part. He answered questions about his work, made small talk about Chicago winters, and stayed close to Elena without hovering. He could feel people watching them, analyzing every gesture, every glance, looking for cracks in the facade. But the cracks didn't come, because somewhere in the middle of all the pretending, something strange started to happen. Nathan noticed things about Elena he hadn't seen before. The way she listened when people talked to her, really listened, like every word mattered. The way she remembered details, someone's daughter's college graduation, another person's recent surgery, a third person's new house in Evanston. She didn't just work the room. She connected with people, genuinely, in ways Nathan wouldn't have expected from someone fighting a corporate war. And Elena noticed things about Nathan too. The way he didn't bullshit. The way he gave honest answers even when a vague corporate-speak response would have been easier. The way he stood beside her without trying to take over the conversation or prove he belonged there. During dinner, they sat at a table with Richard Pemberton, 2 other board members, and their spouses. The conversation drifted from market trends to city politics to a surprisingly heated debate about the best deep dish pizza in Chicago. Nathan stayed mostly quiet, letting Elena take the lead, but when Richard asked him directly what he thought of the proposed new environmental regulations for commercial buildings, Nathan gave an honest answer. They're overdue, Nathan said. The current standards are outdated, and most buildings waste energy because nobody wants to invest in better systems. The regulations will push companies to upgrade, which is good for the environment and good for long-term operating costs. One of the board members, a man named Gerald with a gray beard and skeptical eyes, frowned. But the upfront costs will be significant. Sure, Nathan said, but so is ignoring the problem. You pay now or you pay later when energy prices spike, and your buildings are inefficient compared to the competition. Gerald considered this. You sound like an engineer. I am one. Good. We need more people who think practically instead of just chasing quarterly earnings. Elena glanced at Nathan, something like surprise flickering across her face. Then she smiled and steered the conversation toward safer territory. After dinner, there were speeches. The CEO, a man in his 60s named Thomas Aldridge, who was retiring at the end of the year, gave a long, meandering talk about the company's history and future. He didn't mention Elena or Victor by name, but the subtext was clear. His successor would be chosen soon, and the board was watching closely. When the speeches ended, a jazz band started playing, and people drifted toward the bar or onto the dance floor. Elena leaned close to Nathan. We should dance. Nathan looked at her. I don't dance. You do tonight. Elena, people are watching. Couples dance at events like this. If we don't, it looks strange. Nathan sighed. I'm going to step on your feet. I'll survive. Sir. They walked to the edge of the dance floor and Elena took Nathan's hand, placing his other hand on her waist. The band was playing something slow and jazzy, and around them, other couples swayed gently to the music. Nathan tried to follow Elena's lead, but he was stiff and awkward, hyper-aware of every movement. Relax, Elena murmured. You look like you're being held hostage. I feel like I am. Elena smiled. Just follow the rhythm. It's not complicated. Nathan focused on the music, on the way Elena moved, and slowly, very slowly, he started to find the pattern. It wasn't graceful, and he definitely stepped on her toes twice, but after a minute or so, they were actually dancing. Sort of. See? Elena said. You're doing fine. I'm barely moving. That's all dancing is. Moving slightly to music while talking to someone. Nathan looked down at her. This close, he could see the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the tension she was trying to hide beneath the polished exterior. Are you okay? He asked quietly. Elena blinked. What? You've been performing all night. I'm asking if you're actually okay. Elena's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing her face before she could lock it down. I'm fine. You keep saying that, but you don't look fine. Nathan, I'm not trying to push, I'm just saying, you don't have to pretend with me. Not right now. Elena was quiet for a long moment, moving with the music, her eyes fixed somewhere past Nathan's shoulder. I'm tired, she said finally. I'm so tired of fighting, of having to prove myself every single day, of knowing that no matter how hard I work or how good I am, there's always going to be someone like Victor waiting to tear it all down. Nathan didn't say anything. He just listened. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I was smart enough, strategic enough, ruthless enough, it would be enough. But it's never enough. Because the rules are different for me, and I hate that. I hate that I have to bring a fake boyfriend to a corporate gala just to prove I'm not losing my mind. Her voice cracked slightly on the last words, and Nathan saw her blinking rapidly, fighting back tears she refused to let fall. For what it's worth, Nathan said quietly, you're not losing your mind. And anyone who thinks you are is an idiot. Elena looked up at him, surprised. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you showed up at my door in the rain because you were desperate and didn't have anyone else to turn to. I know you've spent tonight navigating this room like a pro while your rival is actively trying to destroy you. And I know you're still standing. He paused. That's not someone who's falling apart. That's someone who's fighting like hell to survive. Elena stared at him, and for the first time since they'd arrived, Nathan saw her defenses drop completely. Thank you, she whispered. Nathan nodded. You're welcome. They kept dancing, the music washing over them, and for a brief moment the rest of the room faded away. It was just the two of them, moving slowly to the rhythm, holding on to something fragile and unexpected. Then someone tapped Nathan on the shoulder. He turned and found Victor standing there, smiling that sharp corporate smile. Mind if I cut in? Victor asked, his tone friendly, but his eyes cold. Nathan looked at Elena. She nodded slightly, releasing his hand. Of course. Nathan said, stepping back. Victor took Elena's hand and pulled her into the dance, leaving Nathan standing at the edge of the floor feeling useless and out of place. He watched them for a moment, Victor saying something that made Elena's face harden, Elena responding with something clipped and professional, and then Nathan turned and walked toward the bar. He ordered a whiskey, neat, and stood there nursing it while keeping one eye on the dance floor. A woman in her 50s approached him, elegant in a silver gown, her expression curious. "You're Nathan, right?" she asked. "Yeah." "I'm Margaret Chen. I'm on the board with Richard." She extended her hand and Nathan shook it. "You've caused quite a stir tonight." Nathan took a sip of his whiskey. "How so?" "Elena's never brought anyone to one of these events. Ever. People are wondering who you are and where you came from." "I'm just a guy," Nathan said. "Nothing special." Margaret smiled. "I doubt that. Elena doesn't do anything without a reason." Nathan didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. Margaret studied him for a moment. "Can I give you some advice?" "Sure. Be careful. This world Elena lives in, it's brutal. And the people in it will use anything they can to get what they want, including you." Nathan frowned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I like Elena, and I think she deserves better than what she's been getting." Margaret glanced toward the dance floor where Victor was still holding Elena, their conversation looking increasingly tense. "Victor's dangerous. He's smart, connected, and willing to do whatever it takes to win. If he sees you as a threat or as a tool, he'll come after you." "I'm not part of this," Nathan said. "I'm just here for tonight." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that?" Before Nathan could answer, he saw Elena pull away from Victor and walk quickly toward the exit, her face pale. Nathan set down his glass and followed. He found her in the hallway outside the ballroom, leaning against the wall, breathing hard. "Elena, I need a minute," she said sharply. Nathan stopped a few feet away. "What did he say to you?" Elena shook her head, her hands trembling. "It doesn't matter." "It clearly does." "Nathan, please, just—" "He threatened you, didn't he?" Elena looked at him, and Nathan saw the answer in her eyes. "What did he say?" Nathan asked again, his voice harder now. Elena took a shaky breath. "He said he knows about you, about Sophie. He said if I don't back off and let him have the CEO position, he'll make sure everyone knows I'm using your daughter to manipulate my public image." Nathan felt ice settle in his stomach. "What?" "Yes. He has photos of me at Sophie's soccer game last weekend, of me talking to her outside your house. He's going to twist it, make it look like I'm exploiting a child to seem more relatable and stable." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "That's insane. You were just being neighborly." "It doesn't matter. He'll spin it however he wants, and people will believe him because they want to believe I'm the problem." Elena's voice was shaking now. "I shouldn't have involved you. I shouldn't have brought you into this. I'm so sorry." Nathan stepped closer. "Elena, look at me." She met his eyes. "He's bluffing," Nathan said firmly. "He's trying to scare you into backing down. But if he actually had something damaging, he would have used it already. This is just intimidation." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because Victor's not stupid. If he goes after a 7-year-old girl, even indirectly, he'll lose. The board won't tolerate that. The public won't tolerate it. He's counting on you being too scared to call his bluff." Elena stared at him. "And if you're wrong, then we deal with it, together." "Nathan, you don't owe me—" "I know I don't. But I'm here now, and I'm not walking away just because some corporate asshole is making threats." Elena looked at him for a long moment, something complicated shifting in her expression. Then she straightened, wiping at her eyes quickly. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Let's go back in there. Let's finish this night, and let's show Victor that I'm not backing down." Nathan nodded. "Good." They walked back into the ballroom together, and Nathan felt every eye in the room track their movement, but this time he didn't care. They rejoined the party, staying close, talking to more executives and board members, presenting a united front that was becoming less fake with every passing hour. At one point, Richard Pemberton pulled Elena aside for a private conversation. Nathan watched from across the room, trying to read their body language, but Richard's expression gave nothing away. When Elena returned, she looked shaken but determined. "What did he say?" Nathan asked. "He wanted to know if I was serious about you. About us." Elena met his eyes. "I told him yes." And? And he said he was glad, that it was good to see me happy for once. Nathan studied her face. "Are you?" "Happy, I mean." Elena hesitated. "I don't know, but I'm less miserable than I was yesterday. That's something." They stayed until nearly midnight, long after most of the other guests had left. By the time they finally walked out of the Peninsula Hotel and climbed into the waiting town car, Nathan felt like he'd run a marathon. They sat in silence for the first few minutes of the drive, exhaustion settling over both of them like a heavy blanket. Then Elena spoke. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for tonight, for everything." Nathan looked at her. In the dim light of the car, she looked younger, more vulnerable, stripped of the armor she'd worn all evening. "You're welcome," he said. "I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know you just wanted to help me get through one night and then go back to your life, but..." She hesitated. "Victor's not going to stop. And if we want to convince people that this is real, we're going to need to keep doing this, at least for a while." Nathan should have said no. Should have told her that one night was the deal, and he was done. But he didn't, because somewhere between the forced smiles and the awkward dancing and the whispered conversations, Nathan had started to see Elena as more than just a desperate neighbor looking for help. He'd started to see her as a person, flawed, complicated, fighting a battle she shouldn't have to fight alone. "How long?" Nathan asked. Elena let out a slow breath. "I don't know. A few weeks maybe, just until the board makes their decision about the CEO position. And Sophie stays out of it," Nathan said firmly. "No photos, no public appearances, no using her to make you look good." "Of course, I promise." Nathan leaned his head back against the seat, closing his eyes. "Okay, we'll keep doing this. But we need ground rules." "Like what?" "Like we practice. We figure out how to act like a real couple, not two strangers pretending. Because if Victor's watching us, he's going to look for inconsistencies." Elena nodded slowly. "That makes sense. And we're honest with each other. No more secrets, no more surprises. If something happens that affects this arrangement, you tell me." "Agreed." The car pulled up in front of their houses, and they both climbed out into the cool night air. They stood on the sidewalk for a moment, the space between them charged with something neither of them wanted to name. "Good night, Nathan," Elena said softly. "Good night." Elena turned toward her house, then stopped. "Nathan?" He looked back. "For what it's worth, I'm glad it was you who answered the door that night." Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Then Elena walked into her house, and Nathan walked into his, where Jenna was asleep on the couch, and Sophie was safely tucked into bed upstairs. Nathan paid Jenna, walked her to the door, and then stood in his quiet living room trying to process everything that had just happened. He'd gone to a corporate gala. He'd pretended to be someone's boyfriend. He danced, made small talk with billionaires, and stood up to a man who was actively trying to destroy someone's career. And somehow, impossibly, he'd agreed to keep doing it. Nathan climbed the stairs and checked on Sophie. She was sprawled across her bed, one leg hanging off the edge, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. He pulled the blanket over her and kissed her forehead gently. "What am I doing, kiddo?" he whispered. Sophie didn't answer. She just kept sleeping, safe and oblivious to the complicated mess her father had walked into. Nathan went to his own room, changed out of the tuxedo, and lay down in bed. He expected to lie awake for hours, replaying the night, questioning every decision. But exhaustion pulled him under almost immediately, and he dreamed of ballrooms and surveillance photos, and a woman with gray eyes who looked at him like he was the only solid thing in a world that was constantly shifting beneath her feet. The next morning, Nathan woke to Sophie jumping on his bed. "Daddy, wake up! You're going to be late!" Nathan groaned and checked his phone. 7:15. He'd overslept by 45 minutes, and Sophie's bus came at 7:30. "Why didn't my alarm go off?" he muttered, throwing off the covers. "It did. You turned it off and went back to sleep." Sophie bounced again, her hair flying. "Come on, I need breakfast." Nathan scrambled downstairs, threw together a bowl of cereal for Sophie, and managed to get her shoes on and backpack packed with approximately 90 seconds to spare. They ran out the door just as the bus pulled up to the corner. Sophie hugged him quickly and climbed aboard, waving through the window as the bus pulled away. Nathan stood there in his wrinkled t-shirt and pajama pants, exhausted and disoriented, trying to remember what day it was and whether he had any meetings scheduled. Then he noticed Elena standing on her front porch, coffee mug in hand, watching him with barely concealed amusement. She was dressed for work, tailored gray suit, heels, hair pulled back, looking like she'd slept a full 8 hours and woken up ready to conquer the world. Nathan, meanwhile, looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "Rough morning?" Elena called over. Nathan walked across the grass toward her porch, too tired to care about appearances. "I overslept." "I noticed." Elena took a sip of her coffee. "Late night?" "Something like that." They stood there for a moment, the memory of the previous evening hanging between them like morning fog. "About last night," Elena started. "We should talk," Nathan said at the same time. Elena nodded. "Come over tonight, after Sophie goes to bed?" "Yeah, okay." Elena set down her coffee mug. "Nathan, I meant what I said, about keeping Sophie out of this. Whatever Victor's planning, I won't let him use her." "Yeah, I know," Nathan said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "I'll see you tonight." He walked back to his house, showered in record time, and somehow made it to work only 20 minutes late. His boss gave him a questioning look but didn't say anything, and Nathan spent the rest of the day designing ventilation systems and trying not to think about corporate galas or fake relationships, or the fact that he'd agreed to keep lying for a woman he barely knew. At 5 o'clock, Nathan picked up Sophie from after-school care and drove home through traffic that moved like molasses. Sophie talked the entire way about her friend Mia's upcoming birthday party, and whether Nathan thought it was okay to give someone a book as a present, even if books weren't as exciting as toys. "Books are great presents," Nathan said, only half listening. "But what if she doesn't like reading? Then she needs better books." Sophie considered this seriously. "Can we go to the bookstore this weekend?" "Sure, kiddo." They pulled into the driveway and Nathan saw Elena's car already parked in front of her house. She was home early. That was unusual. Inside, Nathan made dinner, spaghetti with marinara sauce from a jar, while Sophie did her homework at the kitchen table. After they ate, Sophie took a bath, brushed her teeth, and climbed into bed with her current favorite book, a dog-eared copy of something about dragons and friendship. Nathan read her 2 chapters, turned off the light, and went downstairs to wait. At 8:30, he texted Elena. "Sophie's asleep. You still want to talk?" The reply came immediately. "Come over." Nathan grabbed his keys, locked the door behind him, and walked across the strip of grass separating their houses. Elena answered before he could knock, like she'd been waiting by the door. "Hey," she said. "Hey." She stepped aside to let him in, and Nathan followed her into the living room. It looked different than it had the first time he'd been here, less sterile, more lived in. There was a laptop open on the coffee table, paper scattered across the couch, a half-empty mug of tea sitting on a side table. Elena noticed him looking and gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "Sorry about the mess. I've been working from home today." "It's fine." Elena gestured toward the couch and Nathan sat. She settled into the chair across from him, tucking one leg under her, looking less like a CEO and more like a regular person trying to figure out a complicated problem. "So, Elena said. "Ground rules." "Right." Elena picked up a notebook from the side table and flipped it open. "I made a list. Things we should know about each other if we're going to make this believable." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You made a list?" "I'm a planner. It's how I survive." "Okay, what's on the list?" Elena glanced down at the notebook. "Basic facts. Birthdays, favorite foods, how we met, how long we've been together, what we do on weekends. The kind of stuff couples know about each other." Nathan leaned back against the couch. "We already have a story. Mutual friends, a few months, keeping it private. That's the outline. We need details." Elena looked at him. "If someone asks you what my favorite restaurant is, you need to be able to answer. If they ask me what you do on Sunday mornings, I need to know." Nathan saw the logic, but also the absurdity. "This feels like studying for a test." "It basically is." Elena tapped her pen against the notebook. "So, Birthday? March 8th. Yours? November 2nd. Favorite food? Elena thought for a moment. Thai. Specifically pad see ew from this place in River North. You? Anything Sophie doesn't complain about. But if I'm picking for myself, probably a good burger. Elena wrote this down. Coffee or tea? Coffee, black. Same. Elena looked up. See? We already have something in common. Nathan almost smiled. What do you do when you're not working? Elena's pen paused. I don't really, not work. Come on, you must do something. I go to the gym sometimes. I read, but usually business books or reports. I watch the news. She frowned. That sounds pathetic, doesn't it? It sounds lonely, Nathan said honestly. Elena's expression tightened. I didn't have time for hobbies. I was too busy trying to build a career. And now? Now I'm too busy trying to keep it. Nathan studied her. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Before all this? Elena looked surprised by the question. Why does that matter? Because it does. What did you want? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, an architect. I used to draw buildings, design houses, imagine cities. I loved the idea of creating spaces where people could live and work and be happy. Why didn't you? Because my parents told me architecture wasn't practical, that business was safer, more lucrative, more prestigious. Elena's voice was flat. So I got an MBA instead, and here I am. Nathan didn't say anything. He just let the silence sit between them. Elena cleared her throat and looked back at her notebook. Your turn. What did you want to be? A pilot, Nathan said. I wanted to fly planes. What happened? Claire got pregnant. We were 24, barely out of college, and I had student loans and no savings. Flying lessons were expensive. So I got a job as an engineer, and I told myself I'd go back to it someday. He paused. Then Claire got sick, and someday stopped being a thing I could plan for. Elena's expression softened. I'm sorry. It's fine. I like my job, and I have Sophie. That's enough. Is it? Nathan looked at her. What do you mean, Retzel? I mean, is it really enough? Or are you just telling yourself that because it's easier than admitting you gave up something you wanted? The question hit harder than Nathan expected. He didn't answer right away. Elena seemed to realize she'd pushed too far. Sorry, that was invasive. No, it's... Nathan stopped. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I did give up. But what was I supposed to do? Let my family fall apart so I could chase some childhood dream? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I recognize the look. The one that says you've sacrificed so much you've forgotten what you wanted in the first place. Nathan met her eyes. You have that look too. I know. They sat there in the quiet, two people who'd given up different things for different reasons, recognizing something broken in each other. Elena broke the silence first. Okay, more questions. What's your favorite movie? The Shawshank Redemption. Yours? The Godfather Part 2. Nathan smirked. Of course it is. What's that supposed to mean? You're a CEO. Of course you like a movie about power and strategy. Elena laughed despite herself. Fair point. What do you do on Sunday mornings? Take Sophie to the park if the weather's good. Otherwise, we make pancakes and watch cartoons. That sounds nice. It is. What about you? Elena hesitated. I usually work or go to the gym. Sometimes I get coffee and read the Wall Street Journal. You really need a hobby. I'm aware. They kept going, trading details back and forth like negotiators hammering out a contract. Nathan learned that Elena hated mornings but functioned on 5 hours of sleep, that she'd lived in Chicago for 8 years but still missed Boston where she grew up, that she had a younger brother she barely talked to anymore because he thought her job had turned her into someone unrecognizable. Elena learned that Nathan had been married for 6 years before Claire died, that he was teaching Sophie to ride a bike but kept putting off taking off the training wheels because he was terrified she'd get hurt, that he still slept on his side of the bed even though there was no reason to anymore. By the time they finished, it was past 10, And Nathan felt like he knew more about Elena Vaughn than he knew about most of the people he'd worked with for years. "Okay," Elena said, closing her notebook. "I think that's a good start." "Yeah." Elena stood and walked to the kitchen, returning with 2 beers. She handed one to Nathan and sat back down. "There's something else we need to talk about," she said. Nathan opened the beer. "What?" "We need to be seen together, not just at corporate events, in public, doing normal couple things." Nathan frowned. "Why, what?" "Because Victor's going to be watching. And if the only time we're together is when there's a crowd around, it'll look staged. We need to seem real. That means coffee dates, dinners, walks in the park. The kind of stuff actual couples do." Nathan took a long drink. "You're asking me to spend more time pretending." "I'm asking you to help me survive." Elena's voice was steady, but there was an edge of desperation beneath it. "I know it's a lot. I know you didn't sign up for this, but Victor's not going to stop. And if we're going to convince people that I'm stable and happy and not the train wreck he's painting me as, we need to commit to this fully." Nathan wanted to say no, wanted to tell her that he'd done his part, showed up at the gala, played the role, and that should be enough. But he thought about the fear in her eyes when she'd shown up at his door in the rain. He thought about Victor's cold smile and the threats he'd made. He thought about the way Elena had looked when she'd talked about her career, like it was the only thing holding her together. "How often?" Nathan asked. "Once or twice a week. Nothing extreme. Just enough to establish a pattern. And Sophie? Stays out of it completely. This is between us. Eat." Nathan finished his beer and set the bottle on the coffee table. "Okay, but we do this on my terms. That means I pick the places, I decide when and where. And if I need to cancel because Sophie needs me, you don't argue." Elena nodded. "Deal." They shook hands. And Nathan felt the absurdity of it, making formal agreements about a fake relationship like they were signing a business contract. "This is insane," he said. He said. "I know. We're going to get caught. Maybe. But maybe not." Nathan stood to leave and Elena walked him to the door. "Nathan," she said as he stepped outside. He turned. "Thank you for doing this, for not walking away." Nathan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded and walked back to his house. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan and Elena fell into a strange new rhythm. On Wednesday evening, they had coffee at a place in Wicker Park, sitting outside despite the cold, talking about nothing important while Elena's hand rested casually on the table near his. Nathan spotted at least 2 people from the gala walking past, and he knew that was the point. On Saturday afternoon, they went to the Art Institute. Elena had suggested it, saying she hadn't been in years and it would look natural, romantic. Nathan agreed, mostly because Sophie was at a birthday party and he had nothing else to do. They wandered through the galleries and Nathan found himself actually enjoying it. Elena knew a surprising amount about art history, pointing out details in paintings Nathan would have walked past without noticing. "How do you know all this?" he asked as they stood in front of a Monet. "I took art history in college. It was the one class I took just because I wanted to, not because it would help my career." "Did you like it?" "I loved it." Elena's voice was soft. "For 4 months, I got to think about beauty instead of profit margins. It was the last time I remember feeling like myself." Nathan looked at her instead of the painting. "You could take another class. There are night courses, weekend workshops. It's not too late." Elena smiled sadly. "When would I have time?" "You make time. That's how it works. Easy for you to say. It's not easy, but it's possible." Elena didn't respond. But Nathan saw something flicker in her eyes, a spark of want she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten it existed. They left the museum and walked along Michigan Avenue, and Elena slipped her hand into Nathan's. It was the first time they'd held hands without an audience, and Nathan felt the weight of it. "There's no one watching," he said quietly. "I know," Elena replied, "but it feels weird to just stop." So they kept walking, hand in hand, 2 people pretending to be something they weren't while slowly becoming something they didn't have a name for yet. During the second week, things shifted. Nathan invited Elena to Sophie's soccer game. He knew it was risky, knew he'd said Sophie would stay out of it, but Sophie had been asking about the pretty neighbor, and Nathan figured one public appearance wouldn't hurt. Elena showed up in jeans and a sweater, looking nervous and out of place among the other parents who stood on the sidelines drinking coffee and shouting encouragement. I don't know anything about soccer, Elena admitted. Neither do I, Nathan said. But Sophie doesn't know that, so we just cheer whenever she touches the ball. Elena smiled. I can do that. They stood together on the sideline, and when Sophie scored a goal, her first of the season, Elena cheered so loudly that other parents turned to stare. After the game, Sophie ran over, her face flushed with pride. Did you see? Did you see me score? We saw! Nathan scooped her up even though she was getting too heavy for it. You were amazing. Oh, Sophie grinned, then looked at Elena. You came. I did, Elena said. You're a great player. Sophie beamed. Thanks. Do you want to get ice cream with us? Daddy always gets me ice cream after games. Nathan froze. This was crossing a line they'd drawn, but Sophie was looking at Elena with such hopeful expectation that Nathan didn't know how to say no without disappointing her. Elena glanced at Nathan, silently asking permission. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. I'd love to, Elena said. They went to a small ice cream shop a few blocks away, and Sophie ordered a double scoop of chocolate chip while chattering nonstop about the game, her team, and the new cleats she wanted for her birthday. Elena listened like Sophie's words were the most important thing she'd ever heard. And watching them together, Sophie animated and happy, Elena genuinely smiling for the first time since Nathan had met her. Nathan felt something shift in his chest. This was supposed to be fake, a performance, a survival strategy. But sitting in that ice cream shop, watching Elena help Sophie wipe chocolate off her chin and laugh at one of her terrible knock-knock jokes, it felt dangerously real. After they dropped Sophie off at home, Nathan walked Elena back to her house. I'm sorry, Elena said. I know you said to keep her out of this, and I shouldn't have. It's fine, Nathan interrupted. She wanted you there, and you made her happy. That matters more than the rules we set. Elena looked relieved. She's a great kid. She is. You're a good father. Nathan shrugged. I try. They stood on Elena's porch, and the air between them felt charged with something neither of them wanted to acknowledge. I should go, Nathan said. Yeah, okay. But neither of them moved. Elena spoke first. Nathan, A car pulled up to the curb, and Victor Langford stepped out. Nathan felt Elena go rigid beside him. Victor walked up the sidewalk, his expression unreadable. Elena, Nathan, what a surprise. What are you doing here, Victor? Elena's voice was cold. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing. Victor's eyes flicked between them. Looks like you're doing well. We're fine, Nathan said flatly. Victor smiled. I'm glad to hear it. Elena, can we talk? Privately? No? Elena said. It's about the board meeting next week. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. Elena's jaw tightened. Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Nathan. Victor's smile widened. Suit yourself. He pulled a folder from inside his coat and handed it to Elena. These are the finalized reports for the CEO selection. The board will be reviewing them on Thursday. Elena took the folder, her hands shaking slightly. I think you'll find them very illuminating, Victor said, particularly the section about leadership stability and personal judgment. Nathan saw Elena's face go pale. Get off her property, Nathan said, his voice low and dangerous. Victor looked at him with mock surprise. Excuse me? You heard me. Leave. Now. Victor's expression hardened. I'm not sure you understand what you've gotten yourself into, Nathan. This isn't your world. And people who don't belong here tend to get hurt. Nathan stepped forward, putting himself between Victor and Elena. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Victor's voice was calm, almost friendly. You seem like a decent guy, a good father. You should think carefully about whether you want to tie yourself to someone whose career is about to implode. My career is fine, Elena said, but her voice cracked. Victor turned his attention back to her. We'll see. Enjoy the reading, Elena. I'll see you at the board meeting. He walked back to his car and drove away, leaving Nathan and Elena standing on the porch in tense silence. Elena opened the folder with shaking hands and scanned the contents. Her face went from pale to ashen. What is it? Nathan asked. Elena handed him the folder without a word. Nathan read quickly. It was a formal report compiled for the board, supposedly objective, analyzing Elena's performance as an executive. But woven throughout were subtle implications, questions about her judgment, references to emotional decision-making, mentions of erratic behavior, and questionable personal associations. And there were photos. Elena at the soccer game. Elena holding hands with Nathan on Michigan Avenue. Elena laughing at the ice cream shop with Sophie. All of them captioned with clinical, damning language. Subject demonstrates unstable attachment patterns. Inappropriate involvement with minor child of casual acquaintance. Erratic personal behavior inconsistent with executive leadership. Nathan felt rage building in his chest. This is all lies. It doesn't matter. Elena's voice was hollow. The board will see these photos, read these reports, and they'll believe it. Because they want to believe it. Because Victor's been planting seeds for months, and this is the harvest. No. Nathan grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. We're not giving up. We're going to fight this. How? He has evidence, Nathan. Real photos, real documentation. It doesn't matter that it's taken out of context. It looks bad. And in my world, looking bad is the same as being bad. Then we get our own evidence. We prove that Victor's the one manipulating everything. Elena laughed bitterly. With what? He's too smart to leave a trail. Everything he does is just plausible enough, just clean enough that he can deny it. Nathan's mind raced. Then he remembered something Margaret Chen had said at the gala. Victor's dangerous because he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. What if we make him confess? Nathan said. Elena blinked. What? At the board meeting, what if we get him to admit what he's been doing, on the record, in front of witnesses? Nathan, he's not going to just confess, not willingly. But if we push him, if we make him angry enough, arrogant enough, he might slip. Reveal something only the person orchestrating all this would know. Elena stared at him. That's insane. You got a better idea? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, even if we could pull it off, the board might not care. They might decide I'm too much trouble regardless. Then you make them care. You remind them why they hired you in the first place. You show them that you're the best person for the job, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. Elena looked at Nathan like she was seeing him for the first time. When did you become an optimist? I'm not. I'm just stubborn. Nathan released her shoulders. And I'm tired of watching people like Victor win because they're willing to be cruel and everyone else is too afraid to fight back. Bumble. Elena took a shaky breath. Okay, let's do it. Let's fight back. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Elena compiled her own documentation, emails showing Victor undermining her decisions, witness statements from colleagues who'd seen him spreading rumors, financial records proving that Elena's divisions consistently outperformed his. Nathan helped her practice what she'd say to the board, pushing her to be clear, direct, and unapologetic. Stop hedging, he said during one practice session in her living room. Stop saying I believe or in my opinion. Just state the facts. I don't want to sound arrogant. You don't want to sound weak. There's a difference. Elena tried again, her voice stronger this time. And Nathan saw the executive she must have been before Victor started tearing her down. On Wednesday night, the night before the board meeting, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. At midnight, his phone buzzed. Are you awake? It was Elena. Nathan typed back, Yeah, can you come over? Nathan glanced at Sophie's room, then grabbed his phone and crossed to Elena's house. She answered the door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair down, her face free of makeup. She looked young and scared and nothing like the polished CEO who'd shown up at the gala. I'm sorry, she said. I know it's late. I can't stop thinking about tomorrow. Me neither. They sat on her couch and Elena pulled her knees to her chest. What if it doesn't work? She asked quietly. What if I lose anyway? Then you lose, Nathan said. But at least you'll go down fighting. Elena looked at him. Why are you doing this? Really? You could have walked away weeks ago. You didn't owe me anything. Nathan thought about it. When Claire was dying, everyone kept telling me to be strong, to stay positive, to keep fighting. And I did, because that's what you're supposed to do. But after she was gone, I realized something. What? Being strong doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means standing up even when you're terrified. It means fighting even when you know you might lose. Nathan met Elena's eyes. You showed up at my door in the middle of the night, soaking wet and scared out of your mind, and you asked for help. That took guts. So I'm here because you deserve someone standing beside you. That's it. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Let someone help me. I've been alone for so long, I don't remember how to trust anyone. Nathan reached over and took her hand. You don't have to trust me. You just have to let me be here. Elena squeezed his hand and they sat there in the quiet, holding on to each other like lifelines. Eventually, Nathan stood to leave. Get some sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Elena nodded. Nathan? Yeah? Thank you for everything. Nathan walked back to his house, and this time when he lay down, sleep came easier. The next morning, Nathan took Sophie to school, went to work, and spent the entire day distracted and anxious. At 4 o'clock, Elena texted him. It's done. Nathan called her immediately. What happened? Elena's voice was shaking. I'll tell you tonight. Can you come over after Sophie's asleep? Of course. Nathan went home, made dinner, helped Sophie with her homework, and put her to bed. Then he walked across the grass to Elena's house. She opened the door, and Nathan saw immediately that something had changed. Elena looked exhausted, but lighter somehow, like a weight she'd been carrying for months had finally been lifted. Tell me, Nathan said. Elena gestured him inside, and they sat on the couch. Victor showed up confident, Elena began. He gave his presentation to the board, showed the photos, made his case that I was unstable and unfit. He was smooth, polished, completely in control. And then I presented my evidence. The emails, the witness statements, the financial records. I laid out everything Victor had done. The manipulation, the lies, the surveillance. How did the board react? Well, they looked uncomfortable, skeptical, like they weren't sure who to believe. Elena took a breath. So I pushed. I asked Victor directly how he'd obtained the photos of me, how he knew specific details about my personal life that I'd never shared publicly. Nathan leaned forward. What did he say? He said. At first, he deflected, said the information was widely available, that he'd simply been observant. But I kept pushing. I asked about specific photos, ones taken from angles that suggested someone was following me. I asked how he knew about conversations I'd had in private meetings. And he got angry, started talking about how he'd been protecting the company from my poor judgment, how he'd had to monitor my behavior to document the problems. Elena's voice grew stronger. He said he'd done what was necessary to ensure the company didn't fall into the hands of someone emotionally compromised. Nathan felt his pulse quicken. He admitted it. He admitted it in front of the entire board. He admitted to surveillance, to manipulating information, to orchestrating a campaign to make me look unstable. Elena's eyes were bright. And then Richard Pemberton asked him a very simple question. What? He asked Victor if he thought this behavior was consistent with the company's ethics and values. Nathan waited. Victor said yes. He said that sometimes you have to bend the rules to protect the greater good. And that's when Richard told him he was fired. Nathan stared at her. What? Fired. Effective immediately. The board voted unanimously to terminate his employment and recommend charges for corporate espionage and harassment. Elena's voice cracked. It's over, Nathan. Victor's gone. Nathan pulled her into a hug, and Elena buried her face against his shoulder, her body shaking with relief and exhaustion and disbelief. What about the CEO position? Nathan asked. Elena pulled back, wiping at her eyes. They offered it to me. Right there, in the meeting. Thomas recommended me personally, and the board agreed. Elena, I said I needed time to think about it. Nathan blinked. What? Elena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dark street. I spent the entire meeting fighting for this job. Fighting to prove I deserved it, that I was strong enough, stable enough, good enough. And when they offered it to me, all I could think was, she stopped. Was what? Was was how much I'd given up to get here, how lonely I've been, how I don't even remember the last time I did something just because it made me happy. Elena turned to face him. I've been so focused on winning that I forgot to ask if winning was actually what I wanted. Nathan walked over to stand beside her. So what do you want? Elena was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I want to be happy. I want to have a life outside of work. I want to go to art museums and soccer games and ice cream shops without it being part of some strategy or performance. You can do those things and still be CEO. Mesti, Don, can I? Because from where I'm standing, being CEO means the same thing it's always meant. Endless hours, constant pressure, sacrificing everything personal for the job. She looked at Nathan. Is that really a prize worth fighting for? Nathan didn't answer right away. Then he said, I think that's a question only you can answer. Elena nodded slowly. I know. I need time to figure out what I actually want. Without the pressure, without Victor, without any of it. That makes sense. They stood there together, looking out at the quiet street, and Nathan realized that somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about helping a desperate neighbor and started being about something else entirely. Something neither of them was ready to name yet. Elena took the CEO position 3 days later. She called Nathan on Sunday afternoon while he was helping Sophie build a blanket fort in the living room. I accepted, Elena said without preamble. I start officially on Monday. Nathan pressed the phone against his ear, Sophie tugging on his sleeve asking where the clips were. That's good. That's what you wanted. Is it? Elena's voice was uncertain. I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I'm making the same mistake all over again. What the You're not, Nathan said, moving into the kitchen so Sophie wouldn't hear. Because this time you know what you're walking into, and you can make it different. How? By actually having a life outside of work, like you said you wanted. Elena was quiet for a moment. Yeah, okay. You're right. I'm shocked you admitted that. Elena laughed. And Nathan could hear the relief in it. Don't get used to it. After they hung up, Nathan went back to the living room where Sophie had successfully destroyed the couch cushions in her fort-building enthusiasm. Was that Elena? Sophie asked, draping a sheet over 2 chairs. Yeah. Is she your girlfriend now? For real? Nathan froze. What? Sophie looked at him like he was being deliberately dense. You guys hang out all the time. You hold hands. You smile when you talk about her. She shrugged. That's what girlfriends are, you trust. Nathan crouched down to Sophie's level. It's complicated, kiddo. Why? Because grown-up relationships are messy sometimes. Sophie considered this with the seriousness of someone who'd spent 7 years observing the world. Do you like her? Nathan thought about the question, about the way Elena had looked standing in his doorway, soaking wet and terrified, about her laugh when she'd actually relaxed at the ice cream shop, about the weight of her hand in his. Yeah, he said quietly, I do. Then it's not that complicated. Sophie went back to her fort. Daddy, you're supposed to be helping. Nathan helped, but the question stayed with him for the rest of the day. Over the next month, Nathan watched Elena transform. At first, the change was subtle. She started leaving her office at reasonable hours. She stopped answering emails at midnight. She actually took a full weekend off and went to visit her brother in Boston, a trip she'd been putting off for 2 years. But the bigger shifts took longer. Elena called Nathan on a Wednesday evening in early December, her voice tight. I need advice, she said. About what? I have a board dinner on Friday night. Important investors, key stakeholders, the whole thing. And She stopped. I don't know if I should ask you to come with me or if I should go alone. Nathan understood immediately. The fake relationship had served its purpose. Victor was gone. Elena had the CEO position. There was no strategic reason for them to keep pretending. What do you want? Nathan asked. I don't know. That's the problem. Well, Nathan leaned back against his kitchen counter. Okay, let me ask you this. If there were no board, no investors, no strategy involved, would you want me there? Elena didn't answer right away. Then she said very quietly, yes. Then I'll be there. Nathan, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but I want to. He paused. Unless you're asking me to come as part of some performance, because I'm done with that. I'm not. I'm asking because... Elena's voice cracked slightly. Because I'm tired of doing this alone, and you make it less lonely. Nathan felt something shift in his chest. Okay then, I'll be there. The dinner was different from the gala. Smaller, quieter, but somehow more intense. Nathan sat beside Elena at a table with 8 other people, all of them dissecting market trends and corporate strategy with the kind of casual fluency that came from spending entire lives in this world. But this time, Nathan didn't feel like an imposter, because Elena wasn't performing anymore. She was just being herself, sharp, thoughtful, occasionally funny in a dry way that caught people off guard. And when she reached for Nathan's hand under the table halfway through the meal, it wasn't strategic. It was just her needing something solid to hold on to. After dinner, they walked along the Chicago River, the city lights reflecting off the dark water. That went well, Elena said. It did, Mom. Thank you for coming. You already thanked me. Twice. Elena smiled. I know, I'm not used to people showing up for me without wanting something in return. Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her. Elena, I need to ask you something. She looked wary. Okay. What are we doing here? Elena blinked. What do you mean? I mean, we started this as a fake relationship to help you survive a corporate war, but the war's over. Victor's gone. You got the job. So what is this now? Elena wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. I don't know. That's not good enough. Why not? Because I have a daughter at home who's starting to see you as part of her life. And I need to know if you're actually going to be part of it, or if you're going to disappear once you don't need me anymore. Elena's eyes widened. Nathan, I would never. You say that now, but your whole life is that company. And I've watched what happens to people who get too close to someone who's married to their job. Nathan's voice was harder than he intended. Claire died, and I had Sophie to think about. I couldn't fall apart because she needed me. So I built a life that was small and safe and predictable. And then you showed up, and suddenly everything's complicated again. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. I'm not asking you to be sorry. I'm asking you to be honest. Do you actually want this? Want us? Or are you just scared of being alone? Elena looked at him for a long moment, and Nathan saw a dozen emotions cross her face. Fear, uncertainty, something that might have been hope. I don't know, she said finally. I've spent so long being the person everyone needed me to be that I don't know who I am outside of that. I don't know if I'm capable of being what you and Sophie need. I'm not asking you to be anything except honest. Then honestly, Elena's voice shook. I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'll try to do this, try to have a real relationship, a real life, and I'll fail. That I'll let you down, let Sophie down, because I don't know how to be anything except the person who works 80 hours a week and doesn't let anyone get close. Nathan stepped closer. So learn. What? Learn how to be different. You learned how to run a company. You learned how to survive a corporate war. You can learn how to let people in. And if I can't, then you can't. But at least you'll have tried. Nathan took her hand. Elena, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to show up and be real. That's it. Elena looked down at their joined hands. I don't want to hurt you. Too late. I'm already invested. She looked up at him, startled. What? I'm already invested, Nathan repeated. I care about you. I don't know when it happened or how, but it did. So the question isn't whether you might hurt me. It's whether you're willing to try anyway. Elena stared at him, and Nathan saw the exact moment she made her decision. Okay, she said. Okay? Let's try. Let's see if I can actually do this. Nathan pulled her close and kissed her. It wasn't their first kiss. They'd kissed at the gala, quick and perfunctory, for the cameras. But this was different. This was real. When they pulled apart, Elena was crying. I'm a mess, she said, wiping at her eyes. I know. I'm going to screw this up. Probably. Elena laughed through her tears. You're supposed to say I won't. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to screw up. So am I. But we'll figure it out. They walked back to the car holding hands, and for the first time since Nathan had met her, Elena looked like someone who wasn't running from something. The next few weeks were harder than Nathan expected. Elena tried. She really did. She showed up for dinner at Nathan's house twice a week. She came to another of Sophie's soccer games. She even took a Saturday afternoon off to help Nathan and Sophie decorate their house for Christmas. But the job kept pulling her back. She'd be in the middle of a conversation and her phone would ring and Nathan would watch her face shift into CEO mode. She'd promised to make it to dinner and then cancel at the last minute because of a crisis at the office. She'd fall asleep on Nathan's couch at 9 p.m., exhausted from another 14-hour day. And Nathan tried to be patient. He knew what he'd signed up for. But it was hard watching someone he cared about disappear into work over and over again. Sophie noticed too. "Is Elena coming to my school concert?" she asked one night at dinner. Nathan hesitated. "I don't know, kiddo. She's really busy with work." Sophie pushed her peas around her plate. "She's always busy." "I know. Do you think she likes us?" Nathan's heart broke a little. "Of course she does. Then why doesn't she want to hang out with us?" Nathan didn't have a good answer, so he just pulled Sophie into a hug and promised they'd do something fun this weekend, just the two of them. That night, after Sophie was in bed, Nathan texted Elena. "We need to talk." The reply came an hour later. "I know. I'm sorry. Tomorrow?" Nathan stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Okay." Elena showed up at Nathan's house the next evening, looking exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she'd lost weight she didn't have to lose. "You look terrible," Nathan said. "Thanks." Elena sat on the couch, pulling her knees up. "I haven't been sleeping well, because of work? Because of everything." She rubbed her face. "I'm failing at this, aren't I?" Nathan sat beside her. "You're not failing. You're struggling. There's a difference." Sophie asked if I was coming to her concert. "I know. I was there." Elena's expression crumpled. "I want to be there. I really do. But I have a merger meeting that afternoon. And I don't know if I can make it in time." "Then you need to make a choice," Nathan said quietly. Elena looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep promising to show up and then disappearing because work is more important. It's not fair to Sophie. And it's not fair to me. I'm trying. I know you are. But trying isn't enough. You need to actually change something. Set boundaries. Delegate. Learn to say no. Because right now, you're burning yourself out trying to be everything to everyone, and you're ending up being nothing to anyone." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to do that." "Then learn. Get help. Hire a therapist. Talk to a career coach. I don't care how you do it, but you need to figure out how to have a life that doesn't revolve entirely around that company. And if I can't," Nathan's jaw tightened, "then this doesn't work, because I've already lost one person I loved to something I couldn't control. I'm not going to watch you kill yourself with work and pretend it's fine." Elena stared at him. "You love me?" Nathan hadn't meant to say it like that, but now that it was out, he couldn't take it back. "Yeah," he said, "I do. Which is why I'm telling you this instead of just walking away." Elena was crying openly now. "I don't deserve you." "Stop saying stuff like that. This isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. You need to choose what kind of life you want. And if that life doesn't have room for me and Sophie, then we need to know now before this gets any harder." Elena wiped at her eyes. "I want you. Both of you. I don't know how to make it work." "Then let me help you." "How?" Nathan pulled out his phone and opened his calendar. "Show me your schedule for the next month." Elena looked confused but pulled out her own phone. Her calendar was a solid wall of color-coded meetings, calls, and obligations. Nathan scanned it. "Okay, which of these meetings could someone else handle?" "Nathan, I'm the CEO. I can't just skip." "I didn't ask if you could skip them. I asked which ones someone else could handle." Elena looked at her calendar. "I don't know. Maybe. The quarterly review. My COO could present that. And the vendor negotiation. I could send my procurement director." "Good. What else?" They spent the next hour going through Elena's schedule. identifying tasks she could delegate, meetings she could shorten, commitments she could reschedule. It wasn't easy. Elena fought him on almost everything, convinced that if she wasn't personally handling every detail, the company would collapse. But slowly, Nathan helped her see that she'd built a strong team, people who were capable and trustworthy, people who could handle things without her micromanaging every decision. By the time they finished, Elena had cleared enough space in her schedule to actually breathe. "Now," Nathan said, "Sophie's concert is next Wednesday at 6. Can you be there?" Elena looked at her revised calendar. "Yes. No, maybe. No, I'll try. Can you be there?" "Yes," Elena said more firmly. "I'll be there." "Good, because if you're not, I'm going to be really disappointed. And so will Sophie." Elena nodded, wiping at her eyes again. "I'm sorry I've been such a mess." "You're not a mess. You're just figuring things out." Nathan pulled her close. "But you don't have to figure it out alone." Elena buried her face against his shoulder. "I'm not used to this." "I know. Nate, I'm not good at letting people help me." "I noticed." Bishitu. Elena pulled back and looked at him. "How do you do it? How do you make it look so easy?" Nathan laughed. "It's not easy. I screw up constantly. I burn dinner. I forget to sign Sophie's permission slips. I lose my temper when I shouldn't. But I keep showing up. That's all parenting is. Just showing up, even when you're exhausted and don't know what you're doing." "And relationships?" "Same thing. You show up, you try. You apologize when you screw up, and you keep choosing each other, even when it's hard." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've never had that. A relationship where someone actually stayed." "You have it now," Nathan said, "if you want it." Elena kissed him, soft and desperate and full of promise. "I want it." Wednesday came, and Nathan spent the entire day anxious. He picked up Sophie from school, helped her change into the dress she'd picked out for the concert, and drove to the elementary school auditorium. They arrived early, and Nathan found seats in the third row. He kept checking his phone, watching the door, wondering if Elena would actually show. At 5:55, 5 minutes before the concert started, Elena rushed through the door. She was still in her work clothes, her hair slightly disheveled, her face flushed from running. But she was there. She spotted Nathan and Sophie and hurried over, sliding into the seat beside them. "I made it," she said breathlessly. Sophie's entire face lit up. "You came. Of course I came." Elena hugged Sophie tightly. "I wouldn't miss this." The concert started, and Nathan watched Elena watch Sophie. She paid attention to every song, clapped louder than anyone else. And when Sophie's class performed their solo piece, Elena grabbed Nathan's hand and squeezed it tight. After the concert, Sophie ran over to them, practically vibrating with excitement. "Did you see me? Did you see me sing?" "You were amazing." Elena said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "The best one up there." Sophie hugged her, and Nathan saw Elena's eyes fill with tears. They went out for pizza afterward. The three of them crowded into a booth at a loud restaurant filled with other families from the school. Sophie talked nonstop about the concert, about her friends, about the upcoming winter break. And Elena listened, really listened, asking questions, laughing at Sophie's stories, looking more relaxed than Nathan had seen her in weeks. On the drive home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, and Nathan and Elena sat in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Elena said quietly. "For what?" "For pushing me, for not letting me make excuses." Nathan glanced at her. "You did the hard part. You showed up." "It felt good," Elena admitted. "Being there, seeing her so happy." "She adores you." Elena looked out the window. "I adore her too, both of you." They pulled into the driveway, and Nathan carried Sophie inside while Elena followed. He tucked Sophie into bed, and when he came back downstairs, Elena was standing in his living room looking around at the clutter, the toys scattered across the floor, the drawings taped to the walls, the half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. "This is what a real life looks like," she said softly. "Messy? Lived in." Elena turned to him. "I want this. I want messy and lived in and real." Nathan crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. Then stop fighting it. Elena kissed him, and this time it felt like a promise. Over the next few weeks, things got better. Elena started setting real boundaries at work. She left the office at 6 most nights. She delegated more. She even hired an executive coach who helped her restructure her schedule and her priorities. It wasn't perfect. There were still late nights and emergency calls and moments when Nathan could see her slipping back into old patterns. But she was trying, actually trying. And Nathan tried too. He made space for Elena in his and Sophie's life. He stopped seeing her as a temporary disruption and started seeing her as someone who belonged. They had dinner together most nights, trading off whose house they cooked at. Elena learned to make spaghetti that Sophie would actually eat. Nathan learned that Elena couldn't cook without making a disaster of the kitchen, and he found it endearing instead of annoying. Sophie started calling Elena by her first name instead of the neighbor, and one night at dinner she asked Elena if she was going to move in with them. Nathan nearly choked on his water. "Sophie," he started. "What?" Sophie looked between them. "You're here all the time anyway, and you have a toothbrush in our bathroom." Elena blushed. We haven't talked about that." "Why not?" Nathan looked at Elena, who looked back at him with an expression that was half terrified, half hopeful. "Because it's a big decision," Nathan said carefully. "And we need to make sure everyone's ready." "I'm ready," Sophie announced. "Elena makes good pancakes." After Sophie went to bed, Nathan and Elena sat on the couch, the question hanging between them. "She's 7, Nathan said. "She doesn't understand how complicated this is." "Or maybe she understands better than we do," Elena said. "Kids see things pretty simply. She likes having me around. She wants me to stay." "And what do you want?" Elena took a breath. "Honestly, I'm terrified. I've never lived with anyone except college roommates. I don't know how to share space or compromise or—" "Elena." She stopped. "What do you want?" Nathan asked again. Elena met his eyes. "I want to stay." Nathan felt something settle in his chest. "Okay. Okay? Let's do it. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. Let's figure out how to actually build a life together." Elena kissed him, and Nathan could taste the relief and fear and hope all mixed together. They started planning. Elena gave notice on her rental. They talked about logistics, whose furniture to keep, how to combine their lives without losing their individual spaces, how to make sure Sophie felt secure through the transition. It was complicated and messy and sometimes frustrating, but it was also real. And one Saturday in January, Elena officially moved in. Sophie helped carry boxes, chattering excitedly about how Elena's room was going to be next to hers and how they could share clothes when Sophie got bigger. Nathan watched Elena navigate his daughter's enthusiasm with patience and genuine affection, and he thought about how far they'd both come from that midnight storm when a desperate CEO had shown up at his door. That night, after all the boxes were unpacked and Sophie was asleep, Nathan and Elena sat on the couch in the living room that was now theirs. "This is weird," Elena said. "Good weird or bad weird?" I don't know yet." She looked around. "I keep waiting for it to feel wrong, like I don't belong here." "And does it?" Elena leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder. "No, it feels like home, which is terrifying." Nathan wrapped his arm around her. "Welcome to real life. It's supposed to be terrifying." Elena laughed. "You're not very good at reassurance." "I'm excellent at reassurance. I'm just honest about it." They sat there in the quiet, and Nathan thought about Claire, about how much he'd loved her, how losing her had broken something in him he'd thought would never heal. But sitting here with Elena, he realized something. Healing didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean replacing what he'd lost. It meant learning to build something new, something different, something that honored the past while still making room for the future. Elena fell asleep on his shoulder, and Nathan stayed awake a little longer, looking around the living room that had been his and Sophie's for so long and was now becoming theirs. Outside, snow started to fall, covering Chicago in a blanket of white. And inside, in a house full of mismatched furniture and Sophie's artwork, and the beginnings of a family that none of them had planned, Nathan finally let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, they were all going to be okay. The first real fight happened 3 months after Elena moved in. It started with something small. Nathan came home from work to find Elena's laptop open on the kitchen table, conference call voices bleeding through the speakers, and no sign of dinner started even though it was her night to cook. Sophie was sprawling on the couch doing homework, looking hungry and a little annoyed. "Where's Elena?" Nathan asked. Sophie pointed upstairs without looking up from her math worksheet. "She's been on calls all afternoon." Nathan felt irritation prickle up his spine. He went upstairs and found Elena in their bedroom, pacing while talking to someone about quarterly projections. He waited until she noticed him, then pointed at his watch. Elena held up one finger. 5 more minutes. Nathan went back downstairs, ordered pizza, and helped Sophie with her homework. When Elena finally came down 30 minutes later, the pizza had already arrived and Sophie was halfway through her second slice. "I'm sorry," Elena said immediately. The call ran long, and then, "It's fine," Nathan said, his voice tight. "Nathan, I said it's fine." But it wasn't fine, and they both knew it. After Sophie went to bed, Elena tried to talk about it, but Nathan was too tired and too frustrated to have a productive conversation. They went to bed angry, lying on opposite sides of the mattress, neither of them willing to bridge the gap. The next morning, Nathan woke up to find Elena already gone. A note on the kitchen counter said she had an early meeting and would be home by 6. She wasn't. At 7, Nathan texted her. "Sophie's asking about you." The reply came 20 minutes later. "Crisis at work. We'll be late." "Sorry." Nathan fed Sophie dinner, helped her with her reading, and put her to bed. By the time Elena came home at 9:30, he was sitting in his dark living room waiting. "We need to talk," he said. Elena set down her bag and sat on the other end of the couch. "I know." "You promised, Elena. You promised you were going to set boundaries." "I am. I did. But something came up." "Something always comes up." Nathan's voice was harder than he intended. "That's the problem. You say work is important, family is important, balance is important. But when it comes down to it, work always wins." Elena's face flushed. "That's not fair. I've been trying. Trying isn't the same as doing. You missed dinner. Again. You barely saw Sophie all week. Again. And I'm sitting here feeling like I'm raising her alone, even though you're supposedly living here. I can't just abandon my responsibilities because it's dinner time," Elena shot back. "I'm the CEO of a major corporation. People depend on me." "And what about the people here? Don't we depend on you too?" Elena stood up, her hands clenched. "You knew who I was when we started this. You knew what my job was like." "I knew what it was like when you were trying to survive Victor. I thought it would be different once you actually had the position and could make your own choices." "I am making my own choices." "No, you're making the same choices you've always made. Work first, everything else second." Nathan stood too, his own frustration boiling over. "I've been here before, Elena. I watched Claire work herself to death, literally, and I'm not going to watch you do the same thing." Elena's face went pale. "That's not the same." "Isn't it? You're exhausted all the time. You're not sleeping. You barely eat. You're running yourself into the ground, and you keep telling yourself it's temporary, that things will calm down, that you just need to get through this one crisis." Nathan's voice cracked. "But there's always another crisis, always another emergency, and I can't keep watching you disappear." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "What do you want me to do? Quit?" "I want you to actually choose us. Not say you're choosing us while secretly choosing work. Actually prioritize this family over your job." "I am prioritizing you." "Then prove it." Nathan's voice rose and he immediately regretted it. He took a breath, forcing himself to speak more calmly. "Prove it, Elena. Show me that we actually matter." Elena stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she grabbed her coat and walked out. Nathan stood in the empty living room, his heart pounding, wondering if he'd just destroyed everything they'd built. Elena didn't come back that night. Nathan barely slept. He kept checking his phone, waiting for a text or a call that never came. At 3 in the morning, he finally texted her. "Are you okay?" The reply came immediately, like she'd been awake too. "I'm at a hotel. I just need some space to think." Nathan wanted to argue, to demand she come home so they could talk this through, but he also understood needing space. So he just wrote back, "Okay, I'm here when you're ready." The next morning, Nathan had to explain to Sophie why Elena wasn't at breakfast. "She had to work," he said, which wasn't exactly a lie. Sophie looked at him with the kind of knowing expression that kids sometimes had when they saw through adult excuses. Are you guys fighting? Nathan hesitated. Yeah, kiddo, we are. Is she coming back? I don't know. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You should tell her we miss her. Nathan's throat tightened. I will. At work, Nathan couldn't focus. He kept replaying the fight in his head, wondering what he could have said differently, what he should have done instead. His phone rang at noon. It was Margaret Chen. Nathan, this is Margaret. We met at the gala. Nathan straightened in his chair, surprised. I remember. Is everything okay? But I'm calling because Elena's in my office right now, and she's a mess. Margaret's voice was kind but direct. I don't know exactly what happened between you two, but she's talking about resigning. Nathan's stomach dropped. What? She seems to think she has to choose between her job and her family, and she's convinced she's failing at both. Where is she? My office, downtown. Can you come? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Nathan grabbed his coat and drove downtown faster than he should have, his mind racing. When he arrived at the building, Margaret met him in the lobby and took him up to her office. Elena was sitting in a chair by the window, her eyes red and swollen, looking smaller than Nathan had ever seen her. I'll give you two some privacy, Margaret said quietly, closing the door behind her. Nathan crossed the room and knelt in front of Elena's chair. Hey, Elena looked at him, her face crumpling. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Elena, you were right about all of it. I've been putting work first, making excuses, pretending I could do everything when I can't. She wiped at her eyes. I don't know how to be good at this. At us. At being part of a family. Nathan took her hands. Neither do I. I mess up constantly. I lose my temper. I expect too much. I don't communicate well. We're both figuring this out. But you were right, Elena said. I need to actually choose you. Not just say it. Actually do it. So do it, Nathan said gently. Choose us. Elena took a shaky breath. I talked to the board this morning. I told them I need to restructure my role. Nathan blinked. What? I can't be the kind of CEO who works 80 hours a week anymore. It's killing me, and it's destroying everything I actually care about. Elena met his eyes. So I proposed a solution. I'll stay on as CEO, but I'm hiring a chief operating officer to handle day-to-day operations, someone I trust to make decisions when I'm not available. And I'm setting real boundaries. No meetings after 6. No work on weekends unless it's a genuine emergency. Actual vacation time. This. Nathan stared at her. What did they say? They agreed, because they'd rather have me part-time than lose me completely. Elena's voice was stronger now. And I realized something. Voice. If the company can't survive without me being there every second, then I haven't built it right. A good leader creates systems that work without them. I forgot that. Nathan pulled her into his arms, and Elena buried her face against his shoulder, her body shaking with relief and exhaustion. I'm scared, she whispered. What if I can't do it? What if I fail? Then you fail, and we figure it out together. Nathan pulled back to look at her. But you're not going to fail. You're going to learn how to have a life that isn't just work. And it's going to be hard, and you're going to mess up sometimes. But we'll be there. Elena kissed him, desperate and grateful. I love you. I love you too. They went home together, and that night Elena explained everything to Sophie. I haven't been around as much as I should, Elena said, sitting on the edge of Sophie's bed. And I'm sorry. I've been letting work take over my life, and that's not fair to you or your dad. Sophie looked at her seriously. Are you going to keep doing that? I'm going to try really hard not to. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I promise I'll keep trying. Sophie considered this. Then she said, Okay, but you have to come to my birthday party. It's in 3 weeks and we're going to the trampoline place. Elena smiled. I'll be there, I promise. And you can't break promises, Sophie said firmly. That's a rule. That's a good rule. Sophie hugged her, and Elena held on tight, understanding for the first time what she'd almost lost. Over the next few months, things changed. Elena hired David Chen, no relation to Margaret, as her COO. He was brilliant, experienced, and more than capable of running operations without constant oversight. It took Elena weeks to actually trust him, to stop micromanaging every decision, but slowly she learned to let go. She started leaving work at 6, sometimes 6:15 or 6:30, when things ran late, but she left. She came home for dinner. She helped Sophie with homework. She learned to turn off her phone after 8 p.m. It wasn't easy. There were days when Elena felt like she was failing at everything, not doing enough at work, not being present enough at home, spread too thin to be good at anything. But Nathan reminded her that feeling inadequate was just part of being human, that no one had it all figured out, that the goal wasn't perfection, it was presence. And slowly, Elena started to believe him. One Saturday in April, they took Sophie to the lakefront. It was one of those perfect spring days when Chicago remembered it wasn't supposed to be frozen, and the whole city came out to celebrate. They walked along the path, Sophie running ahead to look at dogs and climb on rocks, Elena and Nathan following hand in hand. "I got offered a promotion," Nathan said. Elena looked at him, surprised. "What?" "Senior engineer, more responsibility, more pay, but also more hours and travels." "Yeah." "Are you going to take it?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Part of me wants it. It's the kind of advancement I've been waiting for. But the other part of me thinks about Sophie, about us, about the life we've built. And I wonder if it's worth it." Elena stopped walking. "Nathan, you can't turn down a promotion because of me." "I'm not. I'm thinking about it because of all of us. Because I finally have something that matters more than climbing a career ladder." He looked at her. "You taught me that. You showed me what happens when work becomes everything, and I don't want that." Elena's eyes were bright. "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to talk to my boss, see if there's a way to do the job without the travel, maybe negotiate for flexible hours or remote work." Nathan smiled. "You're not the only one who can restructure their role," Elena laughed. "Look at us, a couple of recovering workaholics trying to figure out how to have a life. We're doing better than we were." "We are," Elena agreed. "But we still have a long way to go." Sophie came running back, her shoes muddy and her hair windblown. "Can we get ice cream?" Nathan looked at Elena. "What do you think?" Elena checked her watch out of habit. "Sauce." Elena then deliberately put her phone away. "Yeah, let's get ice cream. Os. Sartuam." They found a place near the water and sat outside despite the wind, eating ice cream and watching boats drift past. Sophie told them about a book she was reading in school, and Elena listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at the funny parts. And Nathan watched them both, his daughter and the woman who'd stumbled into their lives during a storm, and thought about how none of this had been planned. He'd never intended to fall in love again, never intended to let someone new into the careful, protected life he'd built with Sophie. But Elena had crashed through his door desperate and afraid, and somehow in helping her survive her own war, Nathan had learned to live again. They weren't perfect. Their house was always messy. They still fought about work-life balance and whose turn it was to do laundry, and whether Sophie was old enough to walk to her friend's house alone. But they were real, and they were trying. And in the end, Nathan thought, that was what mattered. Not the perfect romance, not the flawless family, just the willingness to keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep building something worth fighting for. 2 years later, Nathan stood in the kitchen making breakfast while Sophie sat at the table practicing her lines for the school play. Elena came downstairs in running clothes, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She'd started running 6 months earlier, after her therapist suggested she needed a stress outlet that wasn't work. "Morning," she said, kissing Nathan and ruffling Sophie's hair. "Morning," they both replied. Elena poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. "I'm taking the afternoon off. Thought I'd come watch Sophie's rehearsal, if that's okay." Sophie's head shot up. "Really? Really? I already cleared my schedule." Sophie jumped up and hugged her. "You're going to see me be the scarecrow. I can't wait." After Elena left for her run and Sophie finished breakfast, Nathan sat alone for a moment in the quiet kitchen. The house had changed since Elena moved in. Her books lined the shelves alongside his. Her coffee mug sat in the cabinet next to Sophie's favorite cup. Her shoes were by the front door, her coat on the hook, her life woven into theirs so completely it was hard to remember a time when she hadn't been there. It hadn't been smooth. They'd had more fights, more struggles, more moments when Nathan wondered if they were going to make it. But they had, because they'd learned that love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth fighting for, even when things got hard. Elena had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize, to actually live instead of just work. She still had bad weeks when old patterns crept back in, but she caught herself faster now. She apologized sooner. She tried harder. And Nathan had learned that letting someone in didn't mean losing himself. That building a new family didn't erase the one he'd lost. That Claire would have wanted him to be happy, not to spend the rest of his life alone out of some misplaced loyalty to her memory. Sophie had grown too. She was 9 now, more confident, more independent, but she still climbed into Nathan's lap sometimes when she was tired, still asked Elena to braid her hair, still needed both of them in ways that made Nathan's chest ache with gratitude. One night in June, after Sophie was asleep, Nathan and Elena sat on the back porch watching fireflies drift through the yard. "I've been thinking," Elena said. "Dangerous." She swatted his arm. "I'm serious. I've been thinking about the company." Nathan tensed slightly. "What about it?" "I think I want to step down. Not immediately, but in the next year or two." Nathan looked at her surprised. "Really?" "Really?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "I've been CEO for almost 3 years. I've proven everything I needed to prove. I've built a strong team, turned the company around, exceeded every goal I set." She paused. "And I'm tired, Nathan. I'm tired of the pressure and the politics and the constant demands. I want to do something else." "Like what?" Elena smiled. "Remember when I told you I wanted to be an architect?" "Yeah. I've been taking night classes, design, drafting, theory, just for fun at first. But I'm good at it, and I love it." She looked at him. "I'm thinking about going back to school, actually getting my architecture degree." Nathan pulled her close. "I think that's a great idea." "Really?" "Really, you should do something that makes you happy, not something you think you're supposed to do." Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You were just too busy to notice." She laughed, and they sat there in the warm June night, planning a future that was nothing like what either of them had imagined, but somehow exactly what they both needed. The wedding happened on a Saturday in October. It was small, just family and close friends in a garden outside the city. Sophie was the flower girl, wearing a purple dress she'd picked out herself and scattering petals with theatrical flair. Nathan stood at the front, watching Elena walk down the aisle, and he thought about the night she'd shown up at his door. How terrified she'd looked. How desperate. How alone. And now she was walking toward him in a simple white dress, smiling like she'd finally found the place she was supposed to be. They'd written their own vows. Nathan went first. "Elena, you showed up in my life during a storm, and you brought chaos and complications and a level of drama I definitely wasn't prepared for." People laughed. "But you also brought joy and challenge and a reminder that I was still alive, not just surviving." Nathan's voice cracked slightly. "You taught me that it's okay to let people in, that building a new life doesn't mean forgetting the past, that love doesn't follow a schedule or a plan. It just shows up when you're brave enough to open the door." Elena was crying now, not even trying to hide it. "I love you," Nathan said. "And I promise to keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when we fight, even when you make a disaster of the kitchen trying to cook something new." Elena laughed through her tears. Then it was her turn. "Nathan, I was drowning when I met you. I'd built this entire life around success and achievement and proving myself, and I was so lonely I didn't even realize how much I'd lost." Elena's voice was steady despite the tears. "You didn't save me, but you stood beside me while I figured out how to save myself. You showed me what real strength looks like. Not perfection, not control, just showing up every day and doing the work." She looked at Sophie, who was grinning from the front row. "You and Sophie gave me something I never thought I could have. A family, a home, a life that's messy and complicated and absolutely nothing like I planned." Elena turned back to Nathan. And I promise to choose this. To choose you, choose us, choose this beautiful, chaotic life we're building. Even when work is demanding, even when I'm scared, even when I don't know what I'm doing. Which is most of the time, Nathan added. Which is most of the time, Elena agreed, smiling. They exchanged rings, and when the officiant pronounced them married, Sophie cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Nathan danced with Sophie first, twirling her around while she giggled. Then he danced with Elena, holding her close while the sun set over the garden. So, Elena said, how does it feel to be married to a CEO? Former CEO, Nathan corrected. You resigned yesterday. Fine. How does it feel to be married to an unemployed former CEO who's about to become a full-time architecture student? Nathan smiled. It feels perfect. And it did. Not because everything was perfect. Not because they'd solved all their problems or figured everything out, but because they'd learned something important. Success wasn't about having the biggest title or the most impressive career or the most money. Success was about being brave enough to build a life that actually mattered, to choose love over fear, to show up for the people who needed you, to create space for joy and mess and ordinary beautiful moments. Elena had spent years sacrificing everything for a career that almost destroyed her. Nathan had spent years hiding from anything that might hurt him again. And then a storm had brought them together, and they'd both learned that the things worth having were the things you fought for, the things you chose every day, even when it was hard, the people you loved, the family you built, the life you lived when you finally stopped running and started showing up. As the reception wound down and Sophie fell asleep on Elena's lap, Nathan looked around at the people they'd gathered, Margaret Chen and her husband, Richard Pemberton and his wife, Elena's brother who'd flown in from Boston, the small circle of friends who'd supported them through everything. This was it. This was the life they'd built from the wreckage of two people who'd thought they were too broken, too busy, too scared to try again. And it was better than anything Nathan could have imagined that midnight when he'd opened his door to a desperate woman in the rain. Because the best things in life, he'd learned, weren't the ones you planned. They were the ones you were brave enough to say yes to when they showed up asking for help. The ones you fought for when things got hard. The ones you chose every single day until choosing became as natural as breathing. Nathan looked at Elena, at Sophie sleeping peacefully between them, at the life they'd built together. And he thought about a lesson he'd learned too late with Claire, but just in time with Elena. You could have everything the world told you mattered, the career, the success, the achievement, and still end up with nothing. Or you could have something small and messy and imperfect, a family that fought and forgave, a love that wasn't easy but was real, a life that fit in a small house on a quiet street in Chicago. And that, Nathan had discovered, was everything that actually mattered. Not the storms that brought people together, but the courage to let them stay.